Most of the teams in this debate miss the simple nuance of support. That's why the links that they're providing are simply inoperational for this debate. Because top half thought that they have the fiat to assume that they can just put prongs of policy without any likelihood analysis. CO assumed that, this false matter can run within this debate and you will just overburden smaller state even though we have proportional responsibility in international relation. It is only in Joseph's speech where we got the proper cursor on how this debate function. Because, again, this is a THS motion, not a THW or THPT. So first, we have explained why the very act of supporting this is the viable solution to the overloading problems of currency manipulation, world-backed conditionalities, and unfair trade practices, which are the only done by developed countries because they are the only one who has the capability to do so, i.e. China and US. This is why it is so urgent to support this because we told you that in the status quo, economic warfare is the only thing that actually forces compliance. Like right now, this is done, but states still do not follow rules like IP protection or open markets because it's only US that's doing this. So we need to support this in order for us to have a discussion chamber wherein you have a lot of state who does this and they have a coherence on how they apply this. Unless there are real material costs and attached, you can only do the hard way and soft way that allows people to have a coherent block to do this specific mechanism in the first place. And worse, we told you that absent this, two things happen. First, the absence of enforcement hurts more because it normalizes exploitation by stronger economies, to which we gained no response from them on how they're going to fix this. Simply because it is just going to be done by few states like China or US by being protectionist or I don't know, by imposing unfair tariffs even to those cronies that they have for this specific state. So you don't have any coherence on how this specific model is done, which are in itself already harmful. Second, most of the time it gives incentives to leaders to partake physical wars that bombards the status quo because they need to coerce large states in order to follow global order. There's no discussion chamber available because the means in which this happens are arbitrary, as Joseph mentioned. Already, why is this more likely to happen? One, because economic warfare gives state the middle ground between just taking and going to war. So they don't need to jump straight into violence to be taken seriously. Note, even Trump yesterday opened discussions to defer war against Iran because of the economic crisis that harms the entire social capital of his own state. Problem, it's not just his own state, it's also the partner states of US. That's why, unlike in direct conflicts, these are large and also it's felt by your cronies and partner states. That's why more people push you into reconciliation within these policies. So this is why we say that the support of this allows states to prioritize this action because unlike in status quo where economic sanctions happen, but it happens in the last run. It happens as a last strategy. So you need to support this in order for you to have a huge block of states that actually try to prioritize this. OG took too much time explaining the motion. OO took an unrealistic burden in this debate by running false matter, just like CO locking themselves by taking most marginal case with no solvency at all. I'll deal with them one by one. First up case, they said that it becomes politicized and spammed by powerful state and it harms developing countries. But again, the only one who has the capability to disengage with global order are the ones that you say are bad. So that's kind of unclear, right? Your stakeholder is non-existent within the status quo. Insofar as only large economies have internal market size and capital depth and supply chain control to absorb shock of sanctions and trade isolation, that's why they're the ones that are directly attacked within this model. In our side, smaller state simply collapse when cut off from global flows. That's why they're less likely to not comply to all of this economic policy. So don't buy the false matter from CO and also from OO because I don't know where they got it. Don't believe in them because again, we have proportional responsibility that are placed between the scale of different state actors. Like for example, you cannot have the same economic policies or obligation for developing countries the same way with developed countries. The international relation committees are not that dumb. But parenthetically opposite, oh no, US will get more control on this. Flip this argument. The reason why we need to support this is because it multilateralizes enforcement, meaning more states are involved instead of just US acting alone arbitrarily. What's missing in the status quo is cohesion. That's why this mechanism of supporting them. POI? Okay, sure. I'll take the POI.
small countries don't have neoliberal policies in their own country. The Western nations like an IMF and W2A forces. That's the motion. It's not about like they will collectivize and like try to
You know the
protect
simple
themselves.
response to that? That means it doesn't apply to them. If they have the new global policies that are entrenched with them with their international relations, simply because they don't have any partner state that are developed state in the first place. This is why you only get the harm aversion in our side, because economic warfare ensures that violations have real costs. It provides non-military tools, which are the largest exclusive benefit in both affirmative bench to the disciplined state. So that's why in our side we limit the arbitrarily unilateral control by dominant state and makes coercion more visible, contestable, and rule-based. Here are the exclusive outcomes that you only get from us. One, we are the only one who explain why this exists within the status quo, and the problem is it's badly applied. That's why we ought to fix this by supporting this. That's why it's crucial to fill in the support of other states to do this. Second, we are the only one who explained why absent this, war are much more likely to escalate, to which at this point gained no response from all. Third, we are the only one who explained how we are realistically protect smaller state, i.e., economic enforcement protects smaller rule-abiding state because without it, larger economies can freely engage in dumping IP violation and currency manipulation that harms the very stakeholder that opposition wants to protect. That's why in their side, they don't respond why smaller state who lack the capacity to retaliate alone with all of the abuses by developed state within the state of the motion have the capability to, alleviate themselves. But economic warfare, as we stated, enables collective action through blocks and institutions, which makes even powerful violator face real costs, even you only have, I don't know, maybe more numbers of developing states retaliating against this one developed state. That's why the entire case of OO and CO is just simply untrue. Which is why this creates the quote-unquote leveling effect that we have told you, in which fair competition and market access are preserved for developing countries trying to integrate into system, because in the status quo they cannot retaliate. That's why we flip this and say that it's not just normalization; it's the active participation done by states that ought to support this. Third, Op tries to misrep us by saying that direct warfare is symmetric or economic warfare is the tipping point of war. That is less likely to be the case, because if it weakens them and strike them at the resource base, even if they retaliate, the conflicts are likely to end faster since they are weakened. Very proud to propose.